So now I'm going to kind of talk about how to maximize the survivability of the Wave Serpent and increase cover saves to the max, basically. And for that purpose, I have a piece of runes here. If I set it up right, I can block line of sight completely, but for this example, I'm going to have it so you can't. Obviously, if you can block line of sight completely to your Wave Serpents, and they can't be shot at, that's the best defense. However, that's very rare, and sometimes you just don't have that much terrain to work with. And so what I'm going to show you basically is, let's just say this is a piece of ruins here. Hollow fields, as we all know how it works, is you move, you get +1 to your cover save. So in this case, your ruins, you get 3+ cover save from those units there, or if I was in the open, I get a 4+ cover save for my Jinx save. It's always good to kind of stay behind cover as much as possible, even if you have a Jinx save, because sometimes you might have something that ignores Jinx saves. Dark Reapers are an example. Hydras are another example. Whoever takes Hydras these days, I don't know, they might be better coming out soon. But there are certain things that ignore Jinx saves. So staying behind a Ruins in general will kind of, you might not get your Jinx save, but you'll get your Ruin save, which will still be a 3+ from the Hollow Field. And then another thing to note is that the rulebook specifically says that if a unit, an enemy unit shooting at a vehicle, is in a facing that it does not have line of sight to, you get +1 to your cover save. So let's just say that that unit there is in this unit, this vehicle's front facing. However, they can only see the side of the armor. This vehicle will get +1 to your cover save. So a 4-up Jink save, 5-up for regular Jink, 4-up for Hollow Fields will go to 3-up because of the difficulty of shooting at your Wave Serpent. However, even better is this is a Ruins, so 4-up goes to 3-up with Hollow Fields, and 3-up goes to 2-up because of the difficulty of the shot. So it's really hard to kind of make it work out. So I'm going to go over here to see if we can get a good angle shot and see if it works out. So let's just assume for the sake of argument that that is only the side that you're able to see and not the front. You get 2+ cover save for that Wave Serpent. And it's always best to just kind of go over with your opponent, hey, this is my intention, can you see the front at all? If not, cool, and then you just set it up, and so you know, without any arguments arising, that you're going to get that 2+ cover save. Also, before the game, it's always a good idea to discuss, okay, this is the front area of the tank, this is the side area of the tank, so if you see this, this is only side, not front, and just kind of go over with your opponent so there's no arguments. And that's pretty much that. So in general, just try to stay behind cover as much as possible, avoid enemy shooting, and kind of stay out of range of enemy shooting as best as possible. You usually have a lot of range on your weapons. One thing about survivability is, I did mention a lot about cover saves, and a lot of people are like, well, what about Tau? They can just strip your cover saves and your tank is pretty much out in the open and dead. Well, let's just say that that was a unit of Pathfinders right there, and they're going to shoot at your Wave Serpent and ignore your cover. Well, they only have a 36-inch range, so let's just assume for the sake of argument that this was maybe 37 inches to this ruin. You can just stay back out of range of the Pathfinders and just shoot them with your Serpent Shield so that you will be taking them out with your Ignore cover weapon. However, they will not be in range of your vehicle with their Ignore cover weapons. And Tau shooting is generally not that great if they don't have marker light support, just hitting on 4s in general with Ballistic Skill 3. And that's nothing to be too scared of, especially if you can keep your cover save, which would be a 3-up or 2+. So that's pretty much how I would deal with Tau, especially Pathfinders, or even if that was a commander with drones. Just pelt the drones to death with your Ignore cover things, and then move up in range with everything else once you do kill them, so you can keep your cover safe. That is pretty much the best bet against those kinds of threats. Now in terms of offensive capability of the Wave Serpent, there's so many units you can engage. I did talk about there's no real wrong way, but an optimal way to build a Wave Serpent, which I believe is just the Scatter Laser turret. Maybe if you have the points, the underslung cannon, if you can put it to good use. I usually don't, so I don't put it on there. If you know you're going to be facing a lot of Terminators, Broadsides, Riptides, that kind of thing, a Star Cannon is not a bad idea, or a Bright Lance if you know you're going to be facing a lot of armor, or even 2+ save things. However, you know, you're going to be shooting a lot of shots with a with Scatter Laser and Serpent Shield, and the Scatter Laser just twin links the Serpent Shield, so it just makes it that much better. And you know, why not just make the person take a lot of saves? 2 shots from the Star Cannon, you might kill 2 Terminators or put 2 wounds on something, or you can maybe shoot up to 11 shots with the Serpent Shield and Scatter Laser. Sorry, I can't speak right now. And you can potentially put 2 to 3 or 4 wounds depending on how well you roll. So in terms of offensive capability, I did touch on it a little bit, but 11 shots, like I said, with this setup, if you put it into perspective, a predator, a ball predator of all things, is probably the most comparable Imperial vehicle that can compare with the Wave Serpent in terms of offensive capability and maybe even survivability. It's 145 points. It has maybe an assault cannon turret and 2 heavy bolt responses. It can shoot a lot, up to 10 shots, but they're only 36 and 24 inch range versus the Wave Serpent's 36 and 60 inch range. And on top of that, you also get strength 6 and 7 all around, whereas the ball is just strength 6 and 5 and that kind of thing. So you really do have quite the offensive capability with the Wave Serpent. Your prime targets are going to be infantry units out in the open, especially things that are relying on cover saves. So let's say those were stealth-shrouded plague bearers. Who cares? You're going to be shooting them with your Serpent Shield. Anything like that, Rangers, Pathfinders, even jet bikes that are relying on Jing saves, whatever. It's just so much utility in that vehicle. Another great target is transports, rhinos, that kind of thing that will maybe be hidden and require cover saves to stay alive. Also very good at taking out warwalkers. So some really good targets for the Wave Serpent all around. And then not only is it good at shooting things, but it's also got a lot of utility in tank shock. Tank shock can be risky in general. You can only move 12 inches to tank shock now instead of 24 like you used to be able to, because how they changed how things move. But still, let's just say you're tank shocking that unit there and you want it off the objective and you're going to go next or last, and you know that this is probably going to be the last turn or whatever, or you're banking on it or risking it. Let's say this was an empty Wave Serpent or whatnot, or you had an objective and you just wanted them off of it or whatnot. You can tank shock them, they pass or fail their morale chest, whatever. Let's just say they Death of Glory and they get a penetrating hit with a melta-gun. You've got the Serpent Shield ideally up, so on a 2+ you ignore it, and it goes down to glancing hit, and no, the model that tank shocked or Death of Glory is dead because it did not stop your vehicle, and you successfully move them off the objective. So Wave Serpents become very good at that, at pushing units off the objective, and also at corralling units so that you can light them up with maybe template weapons or blast weapons. And I'll give you an example of that in a little bit in terms of gameplay. But first, I did go over what Ghostwalk Matrix does for you, so you can go over terrain and deliver units more effectively. I kind of want to go over what it looks like to put vectored engines to good use, because it's kind of like hard to imagine how much that really adds to your unit. It basically adds the length of the Wave Serpent, which is about 6 to 6.5 inches, and adds that much movement to your unit. So you're moving basically 6 inches up with the tank, 6 inches out of the back hatch. With vectored engines, you add 6 inches with the length of the tank because you're usually facing the front towards the enemy, so you're going to get into the back and then move out of the back up. So I'm going to put this here, and for this example, I'm going to be using D-Scythe Wraithguard. I have some Fire Dragons I'm going to be using for another example, but basically how they fit exactly into Wave Serpent, your guess is as good as mine. They're huge. The Wave Serpent's hull is tiny, but we have imaginations because we're awesome like that, I guess. So D-Scythe Wraithguard, I've not used them, but I've heard great things about them, and I think they're awesome with just template weapons. If you get Doomoth on a target, it's just glorious. You're going to destroy whatever you shoot at. So this vehicle, Wave Serpent, let's just say you moved here previously, you want to engage that unit, let's say that's a long fang unit or just some entrenched unit that you want to get to that's giving your unit army grief. For the sake of our example, let's say this is the second half of the table, the opponent's table, your half is over here somewhere. You turbo boosted here this turn, you passed all your cover saves from their shooting because your Eldar and Osman positioned it so you get a 3+ or 2+ cover save. So next turn you want to engage that unit. So let's see how far they are. So they're actually about 16 inches away. I'm going to move my Wave Serpent back, so I'm going to be actually 18 inches away from my front, just for the sake of example, so you can actually see how much movement you get out of vectored engines. So I'm going to move up 6 inches, if I can get the tape measure right. Okay, so 6 inches will get me right there, and then the guys can move out 6 inches there. So they're going to be there, and they're going to put their template down and be very sad pandas because, oh, they're not in range, and those guys are going to laugh and shoot your tank and whatnot because you're a bad general because you did that. However, if you were smart and got vectored engines on this type of unit, or you just want to expose your armor or whatnot. You expose your armor that way, and then from that point, the back of the Wave Serpent here, well, let's see, I am clumsy today. So you move out 6 inches there, and then all of a sudden the template is pretty much in range of everybody. So you effectively can wipe out that whole unit with those flamers, and then next turn if there's an objective there, get there, or whatnot, and then you can shoot the turret weapon at any stragglers that might be alive still, and then you can turn around, and no longer is your rear exposed, and so your Wave Serpent's most likely going to survive whatever shooting might come at it, because armor 12 and Serpent Shield is a lot better than having just rear armor 10 exposed to whatever might be there. So you really don't want to get in the practice of exposing rear armor to enemy units as much as possible. Now, incidentally, another good use of vectored engines is, let's just say that this Wave Serpent is back here, just chilling like a villain because it's a Wave Serpent and it's cool like that. And you have a Space Marine Rhino over here. These guys are in the Rhino, and there's an objective here that it's going to try to make a run for. The Space Marines player is probably thinking, I'm at the board edge, I'm far away from this Wave Serpent, there's no way that they can get to me. I'm going to sneak over here and get this objective. You know, they just moved there. And Eldar are like, we're not going to have any of that. That's not cool. Your Space Marines are supposed to be dead. So, I'm going to move over here. We'll do the same thing. Wave Serpents can move up 6 inches. And even from that point, they can still get some good distance on the tank. But if you had vectored engines or just wanted to expose rear armor, you could get 6 inches out from not that where they would be, but from this point. Because this is where they would kind of end up if you didn't have vectored engines. And then you can use the turret weapon to blow up that Rhino, or you can use other Wave Serpents to blow up that Rhino, and you should have sufficient firepower to glance it to death or penetrate it to death. So these guys would come out here and be like, whoa, what happened? Oh, Eldar happened. So once they realize Eldar happened, they might as well just lay down and die. But for the sake of completeness, you put down all your templates, you can get a lot with all your guys there. So you probably get 15, 20 hits maybe, depending on how everybody deployed and got out. And that squad should be destroyed, and then you're free to go towards the objective with your Wraith Guard. It's pretty cool because Wraith Guard are toughness 6, 3+ save, and they're very survivable. If you happen to put a Spirit Seer with them, cast Conceal, and you were kind of in area terrain, or you kind of wanted to make a run for their wreckage of their hopes and dreams in that Rhino, you get a 3+ cover save from Conceal. Or if you had the Iron supplement and Battle Focus, you could run after you light them up, or vice versa, and go into the transport wreckage that way too. So that's a pretty good incentive for me, at least, that I see of putting vectored engines on your Wave Serpents, because then you can just pivot any way you want afterwards, and it's just a great thing in general to have. It works great with Fire Dragons also. So let's just say that they moved up like I did in previous example. You know, Fire Dragons are going to get out 6 inches. And let's just say hypothetically that this was just barely out of 6 inch range. You can battle focus, and you have fleet, so you can reroll that and get within 6 inch range. And then blow up that transport with your Fire Dragons, and then the guys would get out. And then maybe you have D-Scythe Wraith Guard around too to wipe them out too. So how that might look is, let's say that was a Land Raider. You know, with Terminators or whatnot, or something nasty. Fire Dragons, blow it up. And then these guys are there. Wraith Guard, blow it up. These guys would have, what's it called? Battle focused away from the Terminators or whatnot, and these guys would have wiped them all out with their template weapons. So that's kind of how Eldar can work in conjunction with each other, especially with vectored engines and these types of units being very good frontline and aggressive units in general. Now, another thing that I think is a good strategy so let's just say you've got a nasty unit coming at you, they transport blew up or whatnot, or they're just making a run for it, and they're kind of spread out, so you're not going to get that much of the unit with any template weapons. Well, what you could do is move Wave Serpents up, and then once you get in a position, tank shock. You know, you're pretty safe from Death or Glory with the Serpent Shield up. The unit will have to move the shortest distance And let's say you have another Wave Serpent, you move up tank shock, the unit moves, oops, the turret came off. The unit moves there, and maybe they even fall back, in which case that might be a bonus for you if they're Space Marines, if they shell no field, which just kind of sucks. But anyways, then you move this Wave Serpent up, and then you have your D-Scythe Wraith Guard get out. And then you can see quite easily how you will get probably all of them with each template. So let's say there's sorry, I'm counting in my head, 7 guys there. You get 7 times 5, which is quite a lot of hits, which should wipe that unit out. Another good strategy I have is sometimes the Wraiths, in particular, Necron Wraiths, would give me a hard time. And so I try to do this tactic against them, corral them, and then have the D-Scythe Wraith Guard engage them. And you typically have a Necron Lord with 6 Wraiths, which is 7 models. I usually ignore them until they get close and then do this kind of tactic, in which case the unit should be wiped out with how much damage you put on there. And then if they decide to charge that unit, you get that many more hits, D3 times 5. It's especially good if you can manage to get the number 3 Misfortune power from Divination, which I try to get whenever I'm facing Necrons that have Wraiths, because forcing them to reroll successful saves, especially if you get some 6s on the wounds there, is pretty glorious. So in general, that's pretty much how I use my Wave Serpents, how I put them to good use. Hopefully that this video was helpful and useful, and the cameraman working it was not too bad with the camera or the phone. So let me know if I missed anything, if I could have improved anything, if I made your kids cry, I don't know, whatnot. So thanks for watching, and take care.